In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
The stupid and evil party.
Oh, would you look at this?
Yeah, well...
Would you look at that?
Yeah, there's a few more blemishes on the car.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
The car is not...
Alright, so I'll keep this video short and sweet. As you could tell by the intro, someone messed up. I'm not sure who after watching the whole video, but I definitely have a few complaints. Let's start with the main topic for the day.
Insane executive order, revoke birthright citizenship. Unconstitutional, completely unconstitutional. Completely unconstitutional, not constitutional or not. The Supreme Court decision was constitutional.
Nigga, what?
I think it's all bullshit.
Me too, Hassan, me too. I think most of your video is just piles and piles of bullshit. However, I'm here to save the day. Let's start with a brief understanding of what has happened, in Hassan's quotes.
The Supreme Court decision revolved around how much power do state courts have? And the Supreme Court decided they shouldn't have that much power at all. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this, like I'm not exactly a constitutional law scholar.
I think you're severely mistaken, but neither of us are scholars, and even the scholars are having an issue defining the language in the amendment, which is why we're here today, but let's continue.
The court has just released a potential landmark decision impacting the future of birthright citizenship in the U.S. The justices were asked to roll back nationwide injunctions against the president's attempt to redefine the 14th Amendment.
So what the news anchors just stated is that the courts have tightened the reins over the amount of injunctions that can be filed on this case in particular. However, now you're about to hear Hassan conflate the court's ruling. His fallacious argument will be that the courts completely abolished lower court injunctions against the executive branch. And you can tell just how stupid this thought is because the whole time he makes this argument, he steadily repeats how stupid of a decision it would be. Not only stupid, but impractical. In what world would that even work? The Supreme Court plays a lot of roles in our government, including keeping reins on executive overreach. But in this case, it's a complex issue and they cannot come to a unanimous decision. Instead, it's split and leaning in the administration's favor. But he's not done yet because right after laying out his fallacy, he then proceeds to claim Trump will be our last president. You can't make this shit up. Just listen.
It reminds me of this fantastic moment where Trump told Christians at a meeting that they won't have to vote again after this one election. He was just like, just vote for me one last time and then y'all are good. Y'all are good forever.
Forever. Yeah, forever.
So yes, Trump did say that, but in context, he was speaking about them not needing to vote for 4 more years. And then at the end, when he said it again, he was using it as a defier to explain how they plan on fixing the broken system we have today. And it wasn't a meeting, it was at the Turning Point USA event summit. And if anyone knows anything about Turning Point USA, it's all Christians, like 90% Christian supporters. Here, let's take a second here from POTUS himself.
If you want to save America, get your friends, get your family, get everyone you know, and vote. Vote early, vote absentee, vote on election day. I don't care how, but you have to get out and vote. And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed, it'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You gotta get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not gonna have to vote.
While him telling Christians they won't have to vote again may be a bit inflammatory, I think that given the context of the speech and its location, it was well known he was trying to emphasize on how his administration plans to drain the swamp this go around. And while we heard that during the first administration, we also can see, thanks to the man-child Elon, that not everyone who gets into the presidential administration has good intentions, as we found out with Pence, who tried being a successful author after backstabbing the sitting president. And it's obvious Elon didn't have too much proof considering we still don't have a list, which you would think with him making such accusations that he would be able to produce at least a shred of evidence, but nope, just 150 posts in 6 hours, throwing tantrums. But if you ask Hassan in his chat, they think that the whole Republican Party has a grand master plan to enslave the U.S. population. At this point, I think the left-hard extremists need professional help. Listen again.
Nationwide injunctions have been a seminal tool for the Federalist Society to legislate the conservative agenda for decades because they know the Republican cannot maintain popularity indefinitely. The fact that they are willing to do away with this power signals they are moving into a new phase of the master plan in which they are beyond worrying about insurances against electoral uncertainty. That is why I'm saying this is a terrifying decision. You only make a decision like this if you don't foresee yourself losing the grip of power at the federal level ever.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's about keeping those ants in line.
The only terrifying thing about this whole situation is how completely dishonest Hassan is during this whole video. Considering his own sources completely disprove his stance on the situation, the interpretation of the court's ruling is being twisted on purpose because he knows his audience is hanging on to every word he says. I mean, I do believe his audience is a minority compared to the rest of the population, but still, even 1 million people can be a severe impact when they are being lied to day in and day out by a terror-supporting alleged Diddy partygoer, especially when he has platforms like Twitch supporting his negligent actions. It's honestly disheartening. I mean, I believe in freedom of speech all day, but calling for the death of politicians and supporting terrorists that wish death to the country in which he he lives is disgusting. But it's also kind of ironic knowing that because he's a typical Cali bro American, Hamas would have his head on a pike if he ever were to travel to the Middle East. They do not like us. Hassan may have a Turkish bloodline, but he looks, sounds, and smells like Silicon Valley. Anyways, let's get back to the ruling.
We can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation.
That's literally wrong. That is what it is. Like, that's what it is. That's why it's birthright. You're wrong. That's one attitude that people have because they want to dismantle birthright citizenship.
So Trump's wrong. The 14th Amendment was designed for people to scam the system who came here for vacation. I mean, what are we even talking about here? Hassan is listening to answer, not really listening to hear the facts and details. He just hears birthrights and his brain starts having a meltdown. In reality, the 14th Amendment was officially ratified in 1668. At the time, illegal immigration wasn't a common issue as we know it today. Immigration back then was still helping form this nation, and most immigrants were coming from Europe, China, and Africa. Today, however, we are seeing mostly an influx of fleeing South Americans that are running from cartels and failing governments. We are also seeing terrorist extremists and Chinese nationalists. Sorry, but the numbers don't lie. And as for South Americans and Mexicans, look, I feel for them, but I feel as if we should send the undocumented back and send them with the U.S. military to help bring peace and diplomacy to Mexico and South America. I mean, it's in our best interest to have strong, successful neighbors that have U.S. influence. I bet if you give our military a month, all the cartels will be eliminated and we would be working on rebuilding democracies and communities. This could also provide work for small businesses who would be willing to help rebuild under the guise of a safe environment. But as you'll see, Hassan can't even understand what the judicial process would be if the administration does get a ruling to ratify the 14th Amendment. He thinks that the states will be able to just opt out and disregard an amendment, and in return will leave illegals trapped in sanctuary states. How dull do you have to be as a person to think like that?
Like, what happens to a birthright American citizen born in, let's say, California, where birthright is protected, when they go from the state of California to, let's say, the state of Texas, where in this world there isn't an injunction, and therefore your birthright citizenship is rendered useless? What happens to Social Security, which is a federal process? Like, what do you do in that situation? Do you get deported back to California? None of this makes sense. This doesn't just give tremendous power to the executive office. This also kind of bricks the entire federal system. It depends. In this hypothetical, are they white? Let's say they're not white. Also, what happens to interstate commerce? What happens to travel from one state to the next? Like, if you're not surrounded by blue states, are you simply not allowed to travel by car to a different state because you're fearful that they might just ship you to CCOT? What happens to a truck driver who was born in one of these birthright states but is not protected now because there are some states where you are now considered an illegal citizen? Do you understand? Do you understand how stupid this is? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Oh Lord, where do we start? Nothing, Hassan. Nothing will happen to these kids for now until the amendment is ratified. If it's not, then it's just business as usual. If the ratification is passed, then there will be time needed for the administration and conjoining agencies to draft regulations and a possible proposed change to the amendment, as opposed to a temporary relief for undocumented people who are here for the time being. At that point, there will be coordinated mass roundups, and they will be taken to a corresponding drop-off point agreed on by both the U.S. and receiving nations. Just the words illegal immigrant constitutes concern, and the fact that anchor babies have been used as leverage for citizenship is a grave concern, and has caused communities and businesses turmoil when it comes to regulations and degradation. And the truth of the matter is these people need help. A lot of them no longer have countries. They have land that is ravaged by savage cartels who get exploited by the Chinese. Solving the immigration crisis not only brings jobs and a way of life back to normal, but it also cuts a direct shipping line of illegal drugs across the southern border. It's honestly a no-brainer. But that's it for now. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be back.